Superhero romances. They're bound to happen. When you're busy saving the world or fighting other superpowered individuals, your emotions are gonna be running high from time to time. And not everyone understands the incredible amounts of responsibility that are on your shoulders. So naturally, heroes hooking up with heroes is no surprise. But at times there have been a few romances in the comics that have left readers a little surprised, a little uncomfortable, or a little perplexed as to how these lovers managed to become so. So today we're returning to a previous list of ours, the top 10 weird superhero romances Part 2. And at number 10, Norman Osborn and Gwen Stacy. While Spider-Man is one of Marvel's biggest superheroes and is quite beloved to readers, that doesn't mean he hasn't been victim to some pretty cringe-worthy writing over the years. One of those cases left us with a terrible aftertaste. It was this unfortunate and unexpected pairing, Gwen Stacy and Peter's arch-nemesis, who is sometimes an anti-hero but not really all that often, Norman Osborn. It was the product of a bit of retconning. Turns out that prior to Gwen Stacy's tragic demise, Osborn had hooked up with her, a reveal that unravels itself in the Sins Past storyline in Amazing Spider-Man between issues 509 and 514. Peter discovers that Gwen was cheating on him with Osborn, that she ended up getting pregnant and then broke off the affair. Osborn was pissed, and that was his intention for going after her in the night Gwen Stacy died in the Amazing Spider-Man issue 121 in 1973. Turns out she had given birth to a baby though, which actually was twins, not just one baby, who then would become assassins who tried to kill Parker. Worst part is, it was MJ who revealed a good chunk of this story to Peter, having known some of the details for quite some time. And at number 9, Mystique and AZAZEL. Mystique has had some memorable and meaningful relationships in the past, but her weird fling with demon AZAZEL was not one of them. Essentially, AZAZEL was a demon who had been banished to another dimension, and the only way that he could return to Earth was by having kids with various lovers. Right. So he slept around a bunch in Uncanny X-Men issue 433 in 2004, a story that gives us a more in-depth look at Nightcrawler. So yeah, you probably know where this is going. Anywho, the demon slept with Mystique in Germany, who at the time was hitched to another dude the name of Christian Wagner. AZAZEL, ever the shining example of fatherhood, was gone faster than Nightcrawler could ever teleport, that's for sure, leaving her to raise the baby, who she named Kurt, all on her own. Then, to make this romance one for the books, years before this was even revealed, we found out that Mystique had actually killed her husband at the time, Christian Wagner, because she thought he was up to no good himself. Trust issues, anybody? I mean, can you blame her? And at number 8, Dick Grayson and Helena Wayne. Dick and Helena were a weird pairing. Now, Helena is the child of Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle from Earth 2, and at first glance her relationship with Dick kinda makes sense. Grayson falls for the daughter of his mentor, it's a bit of a forbidden romance, the two of them are into that. But what really makes it weird is the fact that the two of them practically grew up together, looking at each other as siblings. I mean, maybe if you look at this through the lens of like a bad romantic comedy, that isn't that weird. But what is kinda weird is things that these two say to one another when discussing their relationship. Like this classic gem. Helena says to Dick, "And I am a big girl now, you know?" To which he replies, "I noticed. That's why I went to the far side of this ventilator. Even though I diapered you when you were a baby, I assume my peaking privileges expired years ago." Ew, what the hell, Dick Grayson, that's gross. It's crap like that that made them destined to fail, if we're being perfectly honest. And at number 7, Kitty Pryde and Colossus. These two were always a kinda odd couple from the get-go, but to many they're each other's OTP, since they have been attracted to one another pretty much from when Kitty was first introduced into the comics in Uncanny X-Men back in the early 80s. Now at the time, Jean Grey was gone, so Kitty ended up getting a lot of attention as the new girl on the team, with her romantic relationship with Colossus becoming the romance of the series for a while. But this is where it gets a little odd. It's the fact that these two actually have a pretty significant age gap. When Kitty first joined the X-Men, she's supposed to be around 14 years old. 14. And Colossus? Well, he's almost 20 years her senior. Chris Claremont, who was penning Uncanny X-Men at the time, had been pretty open about how he felt, that two individuals can love each other regardless of age. I mean, it's a nice sentiment, except for the fact that it's generally a good idea to not date someone who isn't of legal age, especially if you've got 18 or so years on them. Just saying. That being said, that was something that was explored in the comic, with Colossus refusing to sleep with her because of her age. But they're still making out lots, so. And at number 6, AVIAX and a dinosaur. What's a weird romance list without a little bestiality? Yep, that's a thing I just said. Rather than go the route of Supergirl her horse, which is a real thing and definitely gonna make it onto our part 3 of this list, we decided to go with a more absurd entry this time around. None other than AVIX and his dinosaur lover pal. So AVIX is a member of the galactic superhero team, the Wanderers, who has the ability to transform his body into any creature of flight that his imagination can whip up. This includes dragons, friends, but usually it's birds. In 1988, in Wanderers issue 12, the team would end up on a planet filled with dinosaurs that was headed towards extinction via radioactive fog. AVIX comes up with a plan to save the dinosaurs to ensure that evolution still occurs. What's his great idea? Well, he suggests that they have sex with them to pass along their genetic immunity to the fog. Actually, sounds more like an excuse to bang a dinosaur if you're asking me. So he tells the team, and the majority of them are like pretty traumatized by the idea, except for those two kinky f***s over there who are like, this could actually work, and they have a weird grin on their face. It's just, no, bad panel. Anywho, AVX does it, but the team never actually check in to see if his genetic experiment even panned out. So yeah, it was all just an excuse to fuck a dinosaur. Now to be fair, he transformed into a prehistoric dinosaur himself when he gets it on with a female of the same species, but hey, look at the cover of this issue and tell me that that makes it any better. Right, didn't think it did. Moving on to number 5, Thanos and Lady Death. Okay, sure, this relationship is a bit one-sided. It's also Thanos and the entity of death, which is a really interesting person to fall in love with, or rather, entity. So the reason why Thanos does anything that he ever does in the comics for the most part, or at least earlier on, is the fact that he is in love with Death and trying to court her. We're talking the entity Death, who presents herself as a lady. So, he sees the Cosmic Cube to prove that he loved her. Did it work? No. In the Infinity Gauntlet story arc, Thanos wipes out half of the universe to prove that he's worthy of her love. She doesn't buy it. In between fighting off the heroes of the galaxy in that same story arc, Death ignores him. Death never gives him an answer to any of his questions. She often rolls her eyes at him. He gets more and more frustrated. But that being said, she hasn't always given him the cold shoulder though. But usually any kind of affection or attention Thanos has gotten from her has typically been because Death has used him for something. She gave him powers, but then he kind of went and ruined his chances by attempting to go above and beyond by collecting all of the Infinity Gems. So you can see why she'd probably get annoyed. He has long portions of cringe dialogue in the Infinity Gauntlet arc where he goes on about how he isn't worthy of her. It's actually kind of a riot. But perhaps the most entertaining aspect of the relationship involves the love triangle with our next number, and at number 4, Deadpool and Lady Death. If you thought Thanos and Lady Death were odd, Deadpool and Death is even stranger, although weirdly compatible and kinda works. So Death met Deadpool initially during Wade's torture at the hands of Dr. Killbrew and Ajax at the Weapon X facility. He fell in love with her, and funny enough, those feelings are reciprocated. She shares his sense of humor, believe it or not. Thanos gets wind of Deadpool making moves on Death later on, shenanigans ensue, and eventually the Mad Titan uses a T-Ray to curse Deadpool with an ancient artifact that makes him unable to die. He becomes immortal, so he can never truly have death in the end. Eventually, Thanos does end up getting with Death, sort of, and they have a kid named Rot. Aww. Who they then destroy. Talk about love. And at number 3, Scarlet Witch and Vision. Much like in the MCU, Scarlet Witch and Vision have a thing. Except, in the comics, that thing turns into marriage, which then turned into divorce and heartbreak. Yep. So let's backtrack a sec here. Both of these heroes were members of the Avengers when they started dating. Vision is a robot. The two of them would go on to have children who were twins, who they would name William and Thomas. Vision is a robot. Surprise, surprise, turns out the twins were actually fragments of villain Mephisto's soul that Wanda, thanks to her extremely powerful abilities, had turned into babies. Wanda's mind was then erased to prevent her from the pain of losing her kids, which is something that didn't remain intact because she would then turn on the Avengers because of it, losing her mind and killing Vision, the robot. But because he is a robot, he's never really truly dead now, is he? Anywho, the two didn't last, something that Roy Thomas, who had written for the Avengers, seemingly didn't mind, since he's openly admitted that the only reason the pair were ever together was because the team needed a couple. But if her number 1 spot is any, sign of that, surely that's not for the best. More on that later though. Vision would go on to appear in a Tom King written solo series that explored his life after Wanda, in which he strived for a private life of normalcy by creating a family of robots for himself, because he is a robot, which included a robot wife that he modeled after Scarlet Witch to an extent. It was weird. Despite how unsettling that comes across, it's actually one of the better comics written about Vision, and he's quite the character study. And our number 2 spot, Cyclops and Emma Frost. Cyclops and Jean Grey's relationship is perhaps one of the most problematic relationships in the history of comic books. It does have its ups though. But we are not going there today. Oh no, instead we are going to turn to Jean's rival Emma Frost and look at the weird that went down between her and Scott when Scott was still technically with Jean. And by technically I mean married. I mean, it's not cheating if you're f***ing someone in your mind, right? Well, that's exactly the logic these two went with, and it's exactly what happened when Scott and Emma first started getting close. Emma was meant to help Scott recover from some previous trauma that he had endured, and in the process was going into his mind using her psychic abilities. Initially it started off as telepathic therapy, but then became a full-blown affair with Emma making herself appear like Jean and then having sex with Scott in her mind. Something that began as a role-playing exercise to help Scott. Which, I'm sorry, is just really weird, especially when Jean enters Emma's mind and finds them in bed together with Emma dressed up as her. Like, I'm sorry, how do you talk your way out of that one, Scott? Really. And finally, in at number 1, Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne. Despite the fact that the MCU has portrayed these two as a long-lost romance finally reunited, the fact of the matter is, Hank and Janet have had a really turbulent romantic history together throughout the comics, something that you bet your butt will never see adapted up on the big screen. While there's a whole lot of unfortunate circumstances that have occurred between them, often due to the mismanagement of Hank's mental health, perhaps the biggest incident worth bringing up on our list is the time that Hank beat Janet in Avengers issue 213. Now at the time, Hank was operating under the alias of Yellow Jacket, a period when he was suffering from schizophrenia, had taken on the Yellow Jacket persona, forgetting who he was, and then eventually remembered that he was Hank. Then, with the Avengers, acted out of line and senselessly beaten up a foe of the Avengers who had surrendered. When he was put on trial for it by Captain America and about to get kicked off the team, Hank came up with a scheme to build a robot to fight the Avengers that only he could step in and defeat, showing them how important he was to the team overall. Janet did not think this was a good idea, which resulted in Hank beating her when she attempted to stop him. Because of this, he has gone down in history as a bit of a wife beater. Jim Shooter, who wrote the issue, claimed that Hank striking Janet was never actually intentional, and was due to a miscommunication between him and artist Bob Hall for taking his direction to the extreme and having Hank hit her. Sure, Janet would eventually leave Hank for a while afterwards. Now this isn't the only time their relationship has been toxic. The Ultimates version of these two is pretty damn awful, with Hank literally trying to murder Janet at one point. Regardless, you can see why the romance gets the top spot on our list. Alright, there we have it guys. Which of these couples do you find to be the strangest pairing? And which ones make sense, minus all of the odd crap the writers have made them do? Give us a shout in those comments below and let us know your thoughts. There's also plenty of other weird superhero couples out there, so give us a shout if you want us to do a part 3. Cause hey, who doesn't want to hear about all the weird crap that went down between the Teen Titans characters romantically? I know all of you do. Anywho, if you dug this video, spread the love, hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Nerd for more lists just like this one. In the meantime though, thanks for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.